The Genesis Communications Radio Network proudly presents The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on for your mind.
After I had gotten off air Friday afternoon, I saw a story we posted at prisonplanet.com about how the government is going to allow corporations to not just irradiate your meat with high-powered radiation beams, but to also baste and soak your meats in virus bombs, virus baths. And the viruses are going to be grown in giant tanks with deadly bacteria that kill humans, so they can then spray the virus on the meat, and so 6 different types of bacteria won't be able to kill you, and they can feed you rotten meat. Now, they reported the problem is that the rotten meat, what really makes you get sick is the excretions, the defecation, the waste of bacteria. It is really those toxins in most types of food poisoning. Different things can cause it, but generally it is the toxins of the bacteria. But the meat producers will just simply sponge them off, hopefully getting most of the toxin off. You'll be eating a delicious amalgam, a delicious casserole of decomposing meat, viruses, and dead bacteria and their feces. This is out of the Washington Post. It's also in the Associated Press. If you just type in viruses to treat meat, there's a whole bunch of articles about how wonderful these succulent viruses are going to be. Also, you can type in mercury, good for you, and there's now many studies telling you how good mercury is for your brain. The viruses are nutritious. And I had a caller on my Sunday show on KLBJ that is going to be syndicated by the Genesis Communications Radio Network, by the way. In the next few months, that will be available to all the Genesis stations. We hope you'll pick it up. I believe it's from 4 to 6 right now, but it should be from 3 to 6. But I'll announce that later. The point is that I was on the radio Sunday, and sure enough, first caller, when I started the show with the story about the viruses that translate into the Greek to bacteria eaters, the guy calls in, he says, I'm a biologist, and this is good. And I said, are the vaccines that have viruses attack the brain, are they good? And he said, yes, if it stops you from using drugs. Basically, anything that's scientific is good. It's like a religion. I'm all for science, folks, but just because we can radiate food doesn't mean we should. Just because we can spray bacteria-killing viruses on the meat doesn't mean we should. Just because we can jump off cliffs doesn't mean we should. But he just couldn't get it, wouldn't get it, and I basically ended up yelling at him and hanging up on him. Maybe he's listening today. He said he's a listener to the weekday show, so you're welcome to call in today again, sir, and explain this. He said, well, it's been checked out. The FDA says it's okay. The FDA approved aspartame. The FDA approved MSG. The FDA has approved genetically engineered potatoes and tomatoes and corn filled with any number of bacteria, genes, virus, fragments, insect genes. And there's all these big studies that come out saying that it's causing major toxic effects in the human body and allergies and all other sorts of problems, killing the rats that eat it, by the way, universally. And they say, well, we're still approving it, saying it's still safe. So I'm looking for the Food and Drug Administration to approve cyanide as a headache aid or something. I mean, it'll cure your headache because you'll be as dead as a doornail. I mean, we've got federal studies now saying, oh, don't worry about all those studies saying mercury's causing autism. Mercury really is good for your brain. Good for your brain. Actually, the study says in a lawyer twist that it's good for behavior. Yes, you will sit there staring at the wall because you're brain damaged. And then they say that better behavior then leads to better retention of the materials, of the class material, the course. So they always tell you what they're doing to you right out in the open. Oh, this causes higher test scores. because it makes you behave better. But I thought the mercury in the shots was to keep the viruses fresh and delicious. Okay. You see, we're already living in a science fiction nightmare. We're already having our DNA, our brain tissue, our entire endocrine system, our nervous systems manipulated on a day-to-day basis. It's in the food by design, it's in the water by design, it's in the vaccinations by design. They are now approving spraying. Dow Chemical wants to spray crops nationwide with sodium and stannous fluoride, two different types of toxic fluoride. It's going to act both as a pesticide, because the bugs then won't eat it, and also they say you're not getting enough fluoride, America, so they're going to make you take it. You see, fluoride will go right through the membrane of the vegetables and the fruits and will settle out in the tissues of the plants. And you will eat a delicious fluoride-laden toxic, IQ-reducing compound. And again, official, award-winning historical books on World War II document that the Nazis first used sodium and stannous fluoride from the University of Texas studies conducted in 32-33. The Nazis, by as early as 39, were using it in high levels to pacify their slave labor population. Doesn't matter, though. We have a public that's been drinking it. And notice when you go to the baby store or to the grocery store, it says fluoridated for kids. Your kids need it. It has added levels, even higher than municipal water. But wait a minute. The studies are now coming out saying, well, Americans aren't drinking enough fluoride. They're not getting enough. But wait a minute. Then you get hundreds of times even the level that the Food and Drug Administration says your teeth need in the toothpaste. I mean, that stuff is super strong. But even with that, now you're avoiding the water, so you're not getting enough. And you're evading the toothpaste. The toothpaste. I said you're evading. I'm having a Freudian slip. You are not getting your toothpaste with your fluoride anymore, and you're not getting your water anymore, or you're filtering your water. And so we're just going to spray it on all the crops. How does that sound for you? To the point of there's basically no way to escape them now. And I guess you've got to try to be a vegetarian because they're going to spray these viruses on most of the meats. Of course, the other problem is they're also announcing, another article I found on this, as I was doing research last night, that they're also going to spray fruits and vegetables. Because guess what? There are bacteria they can get on those that'll make you sick. Hey, no problem. We'll spray a special cocktail of viruses on those too. And the FDA says, don't worry, these are bacteria already found in your stomach. And so, well, then if you already have them in your stomach, then why would you need them sprayed on your food? And again, they're going to cook these up in these big troughs at these pharmaceutical companies with all the other problems and all the other viruses that accidentally, they claim, grow, and with the history of the vaccine makers. And this is a vaccine, folks, for your meat. We're going to vaccinate the meat now. Live vaccine on your meat. It just spins off into all these other problems. There's no long-term studies. They don't know what it'll do to your gut flora. They don't know what it'll do in your stomach. Who knows what's going to be in these big troughs? And the FDA barely approved it. And again, they'll approve a bullet in the head. I mean, they'll approve anything. They barely approved it because they are worried about the fact that it'll just kill the bacteria and allow them to feed you, sell you rotten meat. But they said the beef manufacturers, the poultry producers, they promise to scrub the food. If it turns green, they'll scrub it off with soap and detergents and then spray it with the viruses. And then you shouldn't get too many of the bacteria poo-poo. That's what it is. You're not supposed to eat that. I mean, this is just it's hell on earth. All these big studies about how when they irradiate meat products, tuna fish, poultry from chickens and turkeys and beef and everything else, that when they irradiate it, it just kills the bacteria. So you're now eating the dead bacteria and their toxins, and it destroys the ring structures and the different enzymes, everything you need to absorb it. You're eating a totally dead food. And there's a bunch of studies on that. They don't care. School lunch programs, most of the tuna fish you get down those little packages that, it's in a bag instead of a can. And most of the food now, the processed stuff, has been irradiated. They got irradiation plants all over the country. They don't even tell you it's irradiated. Oh, that's in the AP article, too. They're not going to tell you when they soak the ham, soak the turkey, soak the steak, spray the hamburger. They're not going to tell you that they're doing this. It's in the article. You see, you don't even get a choice now. And biologists call into the show and say, yeah, I've heard of the plan to have a vaccine by law we have to take that goes in and attacks the receptor sites in the brain. That sounds like a good idea. It'll end drug addiction. You know what? Those receptors, you fools, are the receptors that pick up your natural endorphins. They're there for a reason. This is literally a lobotomy. And we're coming to the day where they will send heavily armed SWAT teams to your home. I think you've learned, folks, I don't joke about stuff. This is what I really believe will happen, and I've studied it. It's going to happen. Within 5 to 10 years, they will send heavily armed social workers to your house, paramilitary social workers. That's what the government is, that's what the police are now, to force you to take this. Don't worry, though. The studies show it will cause some depression. But then they have other drugs that they say are safe government drugs that affect other receptors that they will prescribe to you. So see? No problem. Viruses that eat your brain cells, viruses on the meat, viruses on the vegetables. I love the New World Order. I just love it. Notice how 15, 20 years ago they put everything on the labels. Because people didn't care. They trusted the system. They didn't even look at the label. So they said, hey, we put everything on the label. Now you have a move in the country where people are demanding organic, demanding clean, quality foods. And so they pass a law, late last year, where now food doesn't even have to be organic to have an organic seal on it. 75% of it can be non-organic, inorganic. So they can put whatever they want in it. They can radiate it. They can use pesticide on it. They can do whatever they want as long as 25% of it, is organic.
Big Brother shows how it should be done.